welcome to the show. I'm Jenna Morton.
And I'm Tosh Taylor, and welcome to the month of November.
Oh my goodness.
This is a big month for Jenna and many of you who watch us and listen to us. In this month, you will find World Prematurity Day, and we are going to chat with Jenna today more about what that means and how we can raise more awareness towards it.
Yes. So officially, November 17th is designated World Prematurity Day, and that has been kind of in place since the early 2000s. 2009 was the first year it was officially called World Prematurity Day on November 17th. And it has come to be kind of an accepted day for all kinds of organizations that for decades have been working on behalf of premature babies and raising awareness and research and all that. I really kind of came into it just in those early days, really. So as a lot of you who watch the show and listen know, I have 3 kids. All 3 of them actually technically could be called preemies. Our daughter would be considered kind of right on the cusp of being a late-term preemie or just a baby. After 37 weeks, you're an infant.
Yeah, okay.
Before 37 weeks, you're maybe a late-term preemie. There's micro preemies. There's all kinds of different wording, but basically we're talking about, on average, you hope a pregnancy lasts 40 weeks.
Right.
If it has to end before 37 weeks, that's who we're talking about when we talk about premature babies. And a lot of the work and awareness is around those born much earlier than that. So our other 2 children, our boys, were born at 32 weeks. So they're kind of right smack dab in the middle of, they're getting towards that late stage, but kind of just on the cusp. So yeah, they were born, 2011, 2013. So we kind of came into this just as the movement was really starting to gain a lot of traction internationally, which was very beneficial to us. And so we've done as much as we can as a family really to try to give back to that. And so as early as I think 2015, I think was the first year that I became involved in helping organize a local event for World Prematurity Day. So we had a gathering at Moncton City Hall that year. We've done things at the hospital and other places. And then a couple years ago, I got really involved with Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, which is the national body that works on behalf of advocating for preemies and for their families. And so that's been really, really rewarding work. So the last 4 years now, this will be the 4th year in a row that I have hosted an online live discussion for World Prematurity Day.
Okay.
And that's something that's done through the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. It's out on their website, on their Facebook, on their YouTube, all these kind of things. And we have guests from around the world that we talk to. Usually we go for about 2 hours or so. This year we have 10 guests from around the world. Again, aiming to talk for about 2 to 3 hours. There's 2 of us who are going to kind of co-host. And really, the reason I wanted to talk about it today on the show and to talk with people is really about that idea of, why is this important to everyone? Obviously, it's important to people who have preemies. Obviously, it's important to people who have felt that personal connection already. And for those who are doing research and are into it for the science aspect, because there's so much cool stuff to get into there that I am not a scientist, but even some of the research, I'm like, this is fascinating. What I really want people to think about and to care about, and why I think everyone should pay attention to the fact that November 17th is World Prematurity Day, is that this really is starting to be something that is going to touch everyone's lives. So internationally right now, the numbers from the World Health Organization, the WHO, suggest that about 13 million infants each year are born premature. So that's like 1 in 10.
Yeah.
In Canada, it's really kind of crazy to think. We have probably anywhere from 30 to 32,000 babies born premature each year in Canada. So that's babies born before 37 weeks.
Wow.
Those are babies that need extra intervention for the most part. Some preemies, especially those late term, might not even spend time in the NICU. But most preemies will spend some time in the NICU and have some lingering health concerns. but they're not necessarily, for most of them, something that really follows them through life. So you could grow up not really knowing that you'd been a preemie or what that meant to you physiologically, like what it means to your body to have been born early, because you don't have, maybe you have asthma, maybe you have cerebral palsy, maybe you have, some preemies have lifelong complications. But a lot of premature babies, after that initial 2 years, we'll say, the first 2 years can be a little much. But after that, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know to look at most kids. You couldn't sit in a classroom and pick out which children had been born early. But why that matters is that more and more the research is showing that while we can't pinpoint any one reason for premature birth, and there is not one reason, there are many things that would factor into it. One of the risk factors, 100%, is if you were born premature. And that's whether you are male or female.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. When I learned that, I was like, what? Everyone needs to talk about this. This is something about your own personal health that you should know, that you can pass on to your children if you have them. Because all 3 of my children need to know that, yes, they have a higher risk factor for having a premature birth because they were preemie. And that's not just my daughter who's, possibly going to have a child. My sons can pass that on to their partners that might get pregnant. And that was the detail to me this year that I was just like, what?
Yeah.
We need to talk about this. And the other reason that we need to talk about it is not only it's something that's part of our medical history that we should be continuing to talk about, because, like I say, for most preemies, they don't remember that. They don't remember being in the NICU. They don't know anything other than the stories you tell them. But in Canada, the rate of premature births is actually increasing, and for the first time since the 1950s. So we are actually having more premature babies born in Canada than we used to. And there's all kinds of reasons why that could be happening. But what we really need to focus on is not just the why, but that sharing of information, that preparing people that this is a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's that many more now than think in 20, 30 years, if these preemies choose to have children and then they all have the chance of passing that along to their children, the gestational period actually might end up being shortened. And back in the day, they used to be pregnant for 40, 41, 42 weeks, and maybe by then, it's 39 or either. That's interesting, and I wonder what's causing that.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that, again, no scientific background here, other than the very smart people that I've had the opportunity to interview, and the things that I have read in the medical journals, not just people sharing their experiences, which is very important that we share our experiences. Absolutely. But also there are a lot of really smart people in Canada and around the world who are doing really, really fascinating research into this. And there really isn't that. There's no one clear indicator, whether it's genetic or socioeconomic or anything, that you might give birth prematurely. It is a spontaneous thing for most people. There are risk factors that you can be more aware of and be paying better attention to. And I think that for me is the big piece of why I keep doing work with the association and trying to talk to more people about this, because as you know, there's so many things about the world of female health and pregnancy and parenthood that people just don't talk about. They get so wrapped up in it's so exciting to have a baby, that people don't want to scare other people. They don't want to share stories that were traumatic for them. People need to talk more about these things and to talk about the fact that, yes, this could happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be a terrifying thing that it once was either. Right? For babies that were born premature 20 years ago even, the outcomes were so different than they are today. I've talked before in the program about our situation in particular. So our sons were born early because of a complication called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. So because of that disease, they ended up being born at 32 weeks. And they survived. And they survived because we had a medical intervention at 20 weeks. Well, that intervention that we had didn't even exist when I was a kid.
Right.
And it saved our lives. And it made their outcomes as positive as they've been. And each day there are new advances that are helping so many of these preemies have much better outcomes than what they did in the past. But those numbers are increasing of how many babies and families are going to be impacted.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do wonder when it comes to the number of increase, there's also an increase in twin pregnancies, correct? So, and I don't know, because I haven't had a twin pregnancy, but what is considered full-term twin? Is it 37?
Yeah,
it's not the full like 40, right?
It's very, very unlikely if you were having a multiple birth that you were going to go past 37 weeks.
Right.
Yes. It happens.
Of course,
I know people that have gone 40 weeks with twins and have done it as a gestational, geriatric pregnancy.
Oh, yes. Yes, love that term.
Because that is another factor. The older you are, the more those risks go up as well. So a geriatric pregnancy, I believe, is 35 and over.
I think so, yeah.
But anything in your 30s, those risk factors do start to go up. And I think that's part of the overall numbers that we're seeing as well. Women are waiting to later in life, for the most part, to have children. And that is definitely one of the factors that can contribute to a more likely outcome of a premature birth. And just like the birth rate in general in Canada is going down as well. Like we are a low birth country in the eyes of the world. So in one way that makes it, I think, all the more important for us to invest the time, invest the money in research, and really look at, what are we doing to set people up for success when it comes to, giving birth. There's so many things that we could be doing better. We're doing lots of great things, and the care that mothers and preemies get in the hospitals is leaps and bounds over what it used to be. And that's giving room for all this really kind of detailed research to be happening now, and looking at, okay, what are all these different factors that are at play, and kind of taking out, okay, what are the socioeconomic factors versus the hereditary factors versus the very spontaneous things. For me, it's just that we need to talk about it.
Yes.
This is not something that we shouldn't be talking about as a society, as a whole. This is going to become, I think, even more and more a part of our lives.
And I think so much so too that a lot of times, so for example, my niece recently had her second daughter, and she was born a preemie, but she was already 7'11", and I was like, geez, good thing you didn't go full term. But that's the problem, is you say things like that, and then she ended up in the NICU for 2 months, the first 2 months of her life, even though, like, you think preemie, you think the micro preemie or whatever that we were talking about earlier. Remember the preemie Cabbage Patch Kids that came out in the 80s and 90s? That's what you think preemie, but it's not always. Sometimes they can be big babies and stillborn early. And I think it's the fact that we're talking about it more, that we're becoming more educated about it, which may be why it seems like more people are talking about it, and then therefore telling their stories, and then you realize, oh wow, okay, like there's that many more of us that are a part of the preemie population, if you will. And then the fact of how much it's changed in the NICU over, we talked about this in the Trojan Trek episode, just like the change in the past 100 years with the NICU, like went from having no incubators to literally everything, being able to do the twin-to-twin transfusion there, the surgery, the laser twin surgery there.
The medicine is advancing so quickly. It's amazing, and it's really interesting. If you're interested in the science of it, Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, every Friday we do preemie chats. And some of them are parents sharing their stories. A lot of them are researchers talking about the work that they're doing. And so if you want that kind of like dose of good vibes of people who really care about trying to figure out how to help these little babies, grow and thrive in a quicker way, in a way that's more thoughtful about them as a person, not just as this medical thing to take care of. You go back and watch some of the videos we've done. I think there's at least 3 years of videos out there, and even in that span of time, some of the research that's come out is just fantastic. There was a time when all of the focus of that research really was just like, how do we, try to save a few lives?
Yeah.
That part, they've figured out a lot of these basics, and now they're being able to get into really detailed things. And that's where you get these advances in medicine that allow for things like the surgery that saved us. But yeah, I think there's just going to be more and more people who are going to experience the NICU, and hopefully more and more people that are going to talk about that and talk about, a lot of the work that Canadian Preemies does is advocating for zero separation. Parents should not be separated from their babies. Yes, medically these babies need huge interventions, some of them need a lot of machinery, but there's a lot of ways that you can give them what they need medically while still keeping them with their parent and doing, skin to skin, all these kind of things. Whereas, years ago we were so aware of, how quick it is to pass, a cold on or something like that. We need to keep everything sterile. Yes, but there's also so much scientific evidence now proving that, keeping parents and their infants together can outweigh and balance out any little risk that there might be. Until you get to, there are a few times when, especially we saw it during the pandemic, there was a lot of hard decisions people had to make about, what was in the best interest. And so I think there were a lot of really powerful conversations that came out of that. There were a lot of really traumatic experiences that came out of that. But I think, more and more we're figuring out, how do we keep parents and babies together while we add on all these other pieces?
Yeah, and that's, I think, another very important advocacy part, too, is I think the stigma about how much time you spend in the NICU with your baby. You'll see, the social media world these days, this person lives in the NICU with their child. They have, a double bed that they share, and the baby's right there beside them, so keeping them together, which is fantastic. But then you also have to remember that some of these people have other children at home, or they don't have the medical coverage to take the time off work, or whatever it may be. There's plenty of different reasons for how much time you can spend with your baby. Maybe it's medically that they can't be there too often. You never know everybody's story in the background, so they're quick to judge when maybe you never had a preemie baby in the first place, so you never had the separation. You have to remember things like that. It made me really sad seeing that the other day, that they were like, how is this person not spending any time with their baby? They had 4 other kids at home. Yeah. That's how.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest things too as a preemie parent, because there's no XYZ, this is what happened and why it happened. There's so much parental guilt. Was there something I did wrong? Was there something I could have done different? Am I doing enough? What else could I be doing? That guilt level, it's so high to begin with. And I think, as a society, we need to help chip that back down and remind people, no, most preemie births, it's a spontaneous thing. You don't have control over it. You also don't always have control over how you're able to react to it. Like you say, for us, we already had a toddler at home. We couldn't spend all of our time at the NICU. We were lucky, we had a lot of support. We spent a lot of time there. We had a fantastic NICU that encouraged that, but also didn't make us feel guilty if we couldn't come in, and we're quick to say, go home for a night. This is our job, we're here, we've got them.
They're safe, yeah.
But even if you have that trust in them, it's so hard
I can
to
imagine.
do that, right? Especially, at least for us, it was our second time around. Some of those early parenting kind of overwhelmed moments we'd at least already experienced once. For the parents who end up in that experience for their first child, I feel so deeply for them, because I think of all of those anxieties I had with our first child, and if that had been compounded, that I also had to deal with the entire NICU experience the first time. Now, she did spend a night in the NICU, but I was still so out of it. Right? It wasn't, it didn't have that same separation feeling as the next day and the next day. And, you know, with the boys, it was 35 days before we brought everyone home. And that is not an overly long NICU stay.
No.
Right? A lot of families are there months and months, and that stays with you as a family. But again, like, to my point, like, that same baby that may have spent months in the NICU, by the time they're 5 years old, 10 years old, 15, 20 years old, and going off to be an adult, they don't remember that. They might not have, that you might not talk about it as a family anymore because it's painful or it's not relevant. And that's, you know, that's really why I wanted to take the time to talk about it today, is to really, you know, ask your own parents if you were born premature, because I'm pretty sure I was, but I'm not actually 100% sure. And I'm pretty sure that was a risk factor that I didn't know to talk to my doctor about. So I want everyone to ask the question, and if you were, to share that information. And if you can wear purple on November 17th, that'd be great too.
Okay, hey, look at us. We did all right. So where can people watch you on the 17th?
So the Facebook Live is actually on the 14th. We're doing it ahead of time, but then it'll be up on YouTube. All of those things you can find, CanadianPreemies.org is the website for the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. That is the place to go. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube. You'll find them everywhere, or just reach out and I'll send you a link.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jenna, and thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week.